Uh, this is not really my format, but I thought about it driving down, and I thought the best thing would be, rather than teaching, which I love to do, about chiropractic and philosophy of life and health, that I would just share pretty much my experience and my story, and then see where it goes. Uh, I've been reading recently a book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and there is an incredible quote in it that really relates to chiropractic, and I want to share that with you. And it says this. It says that the simplicity of trust is one of the most powerful forces in the world. The simplicity of trusting, of trust. And I think it really refers to and relates to chiropractic. And I want to share with you how I got into chiropractic and how, unknowing to myself, I was really unfolding into trusting life and trusting that things will happen for me in the right way. So I was born and raised in Paris, France, and in 1968 I was a crazy wild person doing a lot of drugs, abusing my body. I had no respect for myself, no respect for my health, and I was just doing the wild thing. And we were part of the student uprising in Paris. You may remember May 68, and we fought the cops on the street and did all that stuff. And then from the time I was very young, my desire was always to help people, and especially to help people that had ailment, that had difficulty with their health, that were sick. So what do you do when your heart wants to help people? What do you do in this life? You go to medical school, because there is no other avenue but going to medical school. That's what you know. So I ended up going to a medical school called René Descartes Medical University in Paris, France. And I spent 2 years there, and obviously what we studied was sickness and disease. So for 2 years, I studied sickness and disease. And at the end of those 2 years, I ended up spending 1 year in a hospital called the Ambroise Paré Hospital in Paris, France. And that hospital was a pilot hospital for experimental cancer surgery. And they were doing cancer surgery on ear, nose, throat, and stomatology, which is the jaw and basically the face. So I spent a year there, and during that year, we did all kind of stuff on people. We cut them open, we removed their jaw, we did jaw transplant, plastic jaw, skin graft, you name it. And I learned a lot. At the time I didn't know anything about chiropractic, but I learned a lot. And one thing that I learned is that there was two predominant factors in the hospital that was guiding and directing everything that was happening. And number one was the ego of the chief of service. The person that was at the head of the team of doctors was really presiding as to what was being done on the patient and how we're going to approach it, and his words were not to be challenged. And I had the luck of working with a young surgeon. His name was Dr. Love, and he was very brilliant. The guy had innovative ideas and ways to do surgery in less traumatic and invasive way, and he was always butting his head against the chief of service, and fairly quickly, obviously, he got completely shunted out. And unless you really walk into that person's shoes, they will not allow you to climb the ladder of success. So I witnessed that. The second thing that I witnessed is that the second priority in the hospital is financial gain. We're not really interested in whether people get well or not. What we're interested in is how much money the institution can make. And there is tremendous pressure from the administrative part of the hospital to press the staff to do procedures. Because the more procedures, the more testing there is, the more revenue there is for the hospital. And it has become, at the time, it was strictly a profit-making thing. But today, in many hospitals in the United States, it has become a financial necessity. You probably know that many hospitals are in deep financial trouble, especially with the insurance crisis. And now there is tremendous pressure to promote expensive therapy and to milk, especially the elderly, at the end of their life. So those are the things that I witnessed while at the Ambroise Paré Hospital in Paris. And actually another thing that comes to my mind is that the doctor had no idea of what was going on with the patient usually, what was their medication, but the nurses were really the one doing the healing, doing the caring, and being up to date as to what was going on with a particular patient. So I was doing this thing, and obviously my thought, my internal thought was I was going to become a great surgeon, and once I get to the top, I was going to revolutionize the system. I was going to change the system from the inside out. Now, you probably know how that goes, right? The idea of changing any system from the inside out by joining it. So, as a web of life unfolded, one of my hobbies was to race motorcycle, and it was a road racing. So I road raced for a period of time, and on one weekend I ended up crashing, and as a result of the crash I slid across the track and hit the embankment with my helmet first and then my shoulder. And I got up, bike was pretty banged up, finished the race, and then soon after I started having very severe migraine headaches, and I started losing sensation and strength on the right side of my body, something that was diagnosed as progressive hemiplegia. So I went to the family doctor and we did all the typical testing, and the conclusion of all this was there was nothing wrong with me, which is something that many of us have heard, that you feel wrong, you feel ill, you know something is wrong, but the test results say there is nothing wrong with you. So to make a long story short, neighbors of my mother said, well, they heard of it, and they said, maybe you should send him to a chiropractor. Now, you've got to realize it's 1973 in France. There is very few chiropractors in France. There is probably in the entire country at the time 80 chiropractors for a country of 55 million people. There is about 4 of them in Paris. So I have no idea. As a medical student, I have no idea what a chiropractor is. A chiropractor could have been, you know, somebody that calibrates a rotor for the space shuttle, for all you know. I had no concept. So obviously, I said, well, fine, I'll go see a chiropractor. So I went to my chiropractor's office. I walked into his office. His name was Jean Belaval. As a matter of fact, his daughter recently graduated from Life Chiropractic College. Not his daughter. I'm sorry. His wife. Second or third wife. So I walk into his office, and the man is very charismatic. He sits behind his desk, and I walk up to his little chair, and I sit in front of his desk, and he said, why are you here? So in a very French way, in a very Cartesian way, I do a full dissertation on all the things that are wrong with me and my history. And he sat across the desk like this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he smiled, and he doesn't say a word. All he says is, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then when I've spoken for about 10 minutes, he goes, mm-hmm. Then he stand up, and this is what he said. He says, there is nothing that I can do about what's wrong with you. There is nothing that I can do about what's wrong with you. What I can do, however, is address what is right in you. Sorry. And then he leaves long silence. And then he says this. He says, you cannot fight darkness, you have to turn on the light. I can't even tell you the simplicity of what he said. I mean, it's obvious, it's very simple. But because it was so simple, and it was said with so much conviction and so much trust into knowing that he knew that what he was doing was right, that it hit me very hard, and it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I had been studying sickness and disease for 3 years, and here was somebody that was saying, we cannot fight darkness, we have to turn on the light, which I translated in my mind, you cannot fight disease, you have to turn on life. Retrospectively, at that moment, I knew that I wanted to do what this man was doing. And I got under his care, and within about 2.5 months, I was completely recovered, or nearly recovered, and by the end of the summer, I was recovered, and I decided to go to chiropractic school. So when I told him that, he invited me to spend a day in his office, and I watched him adjust, and I got really enthusiastic to see the tremendous simplicity of the service, and how very little dialogue there was between him and the people he was seeing. He was just welcoming them, putting them on the table, checking them, adjusting them, and he left, and they were going. And how much people loved him, and the volume of people he was seeing, there was something virtually magical in his office. So I decided to become a chiropractor, and I asked Jean Belaval, I said, where do you think I should go to school? And he said, well, if you're going to become a chiropractor, you have to go to Sherman College, because this is going to be the place where you're going to get the philosophy of chiropractic. So I said, that's great. And he called the States and talked to Reggie Gold. And when he hung up the phone, he said, oh no, this is in South Carolina, the college in South Carolina. It has a beautiful campus, there is swimming pools, there is dormitories. It's a great place to be. So by September, I get on the plane, fly to LaGuardia to JFK, JFK into Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I arrive in Spartanburg, South Carolina at about 10:30 at night after having flown for 12 hours on September of 1973. And the only thing that I have in my wallet is a phone number of Tom Gilardi, the president of the college. That's all I have in my wallet. I don't have anything else. So I get to the phone and I try to dial Sherman College. But, you know, coming from Europe, the phone system is different in the States. So I'm doing this thing and a voice comes on the other hand and I can tell it's the operator. The phone is not going through. But I don't speak English. The only thing that I speak is like, it's a big pig. It's a beautiful day, the Rolling Stone, the Beatles, all you need is love, you know, that type of thing. I have all the things from listening to American music. I have the first line of the talk, of the song, that's it. So I get into it, and obviously somebody sees that I'm in distress and help me, and I show the number, and they manage to talk to Tom Gilardi, and in the universal language, they communicate to me, sit and wait. So I sit and wait. And I sit and wait for about 2 hours. Airport is desolate, empty. It's now about midnight. There's not a soul in the place, and I'm sitting there with my suitcase. And here comes this guy with long sideburn and long hair down to here, in his 50s, that woke up with a grin on his face, and he said, "Hi, I'm Reggie." Actually, he spoke a little bit French, so he said, "Bonjour, I'm Reggie. You must be Arno, the French student." And I said, "Yeah, this is, you know, c'est moi." And we get in his car. And he has this beautiful French Citroën Maserati, which were really hot cars. And he got in his car, and he is really going to show me what America is all about. And we get off on I-95, and the first exit we take, we nearly went off the road. We drive in town, and we go to the Travel Lodge in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and he plucked me in a room at the Travel Lodge. So I figure, got to go to sleep. It's midnight, right, or 1 o'clock. So I go to sleep, get up in the morning, stand on the balcony of the Travel Lodge at the corner of Main Street in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and spend my morning there, and I have no idea where Reggie is. I don't have a clue. And about 11:30, he showed his face, same grin, same bouncing walk, you know, show his face, and he dumped me at Marvin Bruncher, some other place. And finally, after a few days of being moved from places to places, I finally meet Tom Gilardi. And I'm all excited, the president of the college. So one day we take a drive down the street, and I formulate college, where college, you know? So we drive and say, I get the picture, there is no college. You get it? There is no college, there is no building, they don't have a college. I have flown from Paris to Spartanburg, South Carolina. There is no college, there is nothing, they don't have anything. And then they point to a building, which is a telephone, Southern Bell telephone building, and they go, we're going to rent this thing. So they rent the damn thing, and then we end up having to make the partition to make the classrooms. And the school is supposed to open October 15. I had come slightly early to learn a little bit of English before I can take classes. So now it started to dawn on me that I'm in Spartanburg, South Carolina. They don't have a college. We're making the college. We're nailing the wall. We're doing all those things. And I realized that in the middle of all this, either I'm completely crazy or I'm unconscious, or I'm just taken over by this dream of becoming a chiropractor. So I go with the flow, right? I go into the dream. And after about a week or 10 days in Spartanburg, South Carolina, they matched me with other students that have arrived from all over the United States into a place called the Herman House on South Church Street in Spartanburg, South Carolina, which is inhabited by 5 or 6 American students that have hair down to here, barefoot, bell-bottom jean, peace sign everywhere. It's 1973. And my first experience of my contact with the American student was this. I walk up those stairs, and they're all sitting in the kitchen, a run-down, beat-up house, in the kitchen with a big cart of Breyer's ice cream and 5 spoons stabbed into it, and they're shoving the ice cream. And I come in, and I come from a very proper country where we have ice cream on a little thing with a little dolly in a cup with a little cone, And they sit and they go, "Do you want ice cream?" And I go, "Yeah." And they shove another spoon in the thing, and that's it. And while this is going on, this character named Walter Gidding, this character named Walter Gidding is basically...
I know. There's a lot of kids around.
All right, that's all right. Go ahead. He's basically doing his Cherokee girlfriend, doggy style, in the hallway, all the way into the kitchen. And that was my introduction to my future colleagues in chiropractic, and future doctor of chiropractic. So you can see that it was kind of a shock and a very strong change of culture, to say the least. So anyhow, we go into school, and one of the first things that take place while we are in school is that one of my classmates named Jackie Gates start to develop a growth on the side of the face. Jackie Gates came from a lineage of chiropractor. Most of her brothers are chiropractor, and her father was a chiropractor. So she came from a lineage, and she has this growing mass that starts to grow on the side of the face. And this thing grows bigger and bigger and bigger to become a tumor. And over a period of months, this tumor grows and grows so much that the heaviness of it forms a stalk. And now there is like a mass hanging like this, and when she's walking, it's bouncing like this. So in the process of the tumor growing, many people in our class that were not completely entrusted into chiropractic, that were still in the medical mind or in the fear mode, were like, "Well, Jackie, you better go to the hospital, have a biopsy taken, have it removed, get chemo, get x-ray." And she said, "No, I come from a family of chiropractor. I'm not doing this." So this thing grows, and it grows, and it grows, and it forms a stalk, and the stalk becomes longer and longer and longer. So by the time it was longer and hanging like this, many people say, "Well, now that it's there, why don't you have it lanced so that it doesn't hang, it's ugly." She doesn't do it. And then one day she walked into school, and the thing is gone. So obviously this group said, "Oh, you finally had it cut." And she said, "No, I was taking a hot bath, and the thing fell off, barely leaving a scar." So my friend Walter Gidding, he was a bookworm, very involved in research. He went to the library and researched in anthropology if this was a common phenomena among natural people, native people, among tribes all over the world. And he found out that in many tribes throughout the world, this is not an unknown phenomena, that a tumor will grow and grow and grow and virtually segregate itself out of the body, and sometimes from a stalk and just hang like this, sometimes may fall off, sometimes may not. Or at other times, they have been found to encapsulate themselves, which means the tumor pushed outwards, and then a wall of calcium was built around it called sequestrum that isolated the tumor from the rest of the body. So now we realize that what we had witnessed was not just a fluke thing. It was something that takes place fairly normally in natural society when no interference are put into the process. So this was my first witnesses of witnessing tremendous healing. I mean, this was a pretty heavy thing going on. And you got to understand that I'm not saying by any means that everybody that has a tumor should go that route. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, for that person in the time and space, and with the mind that she had, and with the trust that she had, and with the care that she had, and the support that she had, that was the outcome. In a tribal society, there is no dreaming of surgery, radiation, or chemo because it doesn't exist. The only dreaming is allowing what is to be. And then it unfolds whatever way it unfolds. So there is a complete surrender to the inner wisdom of the body to do what it's supposed to do. You follow me? In a tribal society. So that's why we have that outcome. So the next thing that went on is that Alan Berman, who was a classmate of mine also, by the way, Jackie Gates, if you are ever in Kansas City, Missouri, give her a ring and Go visit her. She's a practicing chiropractor, and you'll see that there is virtually no scar on the side of her face. Alan Berman practices now in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Alan Berman, while he was a student in school, was a cook, a short-order cook to make money to finance himself for school. And he worked at a place called the Sizzling Steakhouse in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Can we dim the kids out a little bit, maybe? I don't know. And being a short-order cook, at the end of the night, what you have to do is clean up the kitchen. And they use those huge boilers to boil, deep fry the food. And those boilers are mounted on wheels that have a lock on it. And part of the cleaning process is to move the boiler. And as he moves the boiler, somebody had removed the drain cover, and the boiler leg dropped into the drain cover, and the hot oil spilled on his body. His body was burned by the oil, melting. They used to wear a uniform with black pants and a red shirt, red nylon shirt. The nylon shirt melted in his chest and his forearm. He was burned 3rd to 4th degree burn. The restaurant owner said, send him to the hospital, call 911. He refused to go to the hospital. He requested to be taken to his home, and that Ly W. Sherman, Dr. Sherman, for those of you who do not know who he is, used to be the director of the B.J. Palmer Research Clinic in Davenport, Iowa, when B.J. Palmer was alive. And now, Ly W. Sherman, Dr. Sherman, lived in Spartanburg, South Carolina. The college was named after him because of the phenomenal man that he was. So Alan Berman requested that Dr. Sherman would come see him and adjust him and check him. Now, he couldn't lay down on a table. He could only sit. He was so burned. And he got adjusted. And Ly W. Sherman came, checked him, and gave him a sitting toggle recall adjustment on the atlas. And Alan reported that at the time that the adjustment was given, the pain level decreased significantly. Now, in 1973, there was no context to understand why that would take place. There was only the clinical evidence that it did take place, but no one understood why it did take place. It is only now, with the development of neurobiochemistry and brain chemistry, that we understand that the brain produces endorphin, pain-type substances. And under the trauma of the surprise and the startling shock of the hot oil, he probably subluxated himself, shut down the pathway between brain and body, and did not allow the normal release of endorphin to take place in the body. Therefore, when he got adjusted and cleared the pathway, there was a release of normal physiology in the body and a release of endorphin, and the pain level decreased. We watched Alan spend days and days and weeks sitting in his chair. He didn't take any painkiller. He sat there, went to the bathroom by lifting himself up, and we would come after school to tutor him so that he wouldn't lose ground. In a period of 3 or 4 months, all of the burn had healed, and today, if you go see him in Pittsburgh and ask him to open his shirt, there is barely scar on his body. So this is the event of a person that was able to heal himself of 4th degree burn with melted nylon in the flesh, with no infection and no scars to the body. Now you may say, how can that be? Walter Gidding went back to work into the library and found out that among the American Indians, there is many accounts of the American Indian during the war with the white man being burned by white powder, exploding powder, and their body was burned. Sometimes their limb may have been torn off. Sometimes in a fight with a bear, they may have lost part of a limb. Being able to walk back to their village a few miles and heal completely from the burn or from the missing limb. So what we know today is that the capacity of the body to heal is at least to that degree if the consciousness and the belief system and the trust is there, and if there is no other available option. So those were my 2 witnessing of very heavy healing, which were substantiated by the fact that in other places throughout the world, at other times, or at present time, similar healing took place. You may want to know that the kahuna of Hawaii, that are the traditional healer of Hawaii, are teaching their children that it is impossible to get burned by molten lava, and therefore the kahuna of Hawaii, as well as their children, can walk barefoot on molten lava without burning their feet. For those of you that have done fire walking, you know that through changing the mindset and the belief system, you can walk on burning fire without getting burned. It's interesting to know that this concept of changing the belief system and allowing a transformation of the physical level is not new. For example, the Hopi Indian and the Amish people are the only two societies in America among which there is no crime. There is no crime because children are taught at a very early age that it is inconceivable to harm another human being. It is unthinkable to harm another human being. So consequently, as a result of that, it is so part of the matrix of their being and the belief system that it transpires in the actualization of their lives. This is what takes place. When we got our children, we made a conscious decision to tell our two children that it is inconceivable that the body could not heal itself. Very quickly, the few times that they got mildly hurt, rather than immediately showing and saying, oh, help me, and crying and all this, very quickly after doing this, when we say, well, let's see how it heals, show me how it healed in a few days, very quickly they would come by and show us how it has healed, rather than at the time of the injury. The other thing that has taken place with my kids is they have no consciousness or awareness that a symptom are good or bad. There is no value judgment on it. A symptom is what is and what is only. And they relate to a symptom very much to the degree that we relate to the weather. Whether it's overcast, there is clouds, there is wind, or whatever, that is what is. It's neither good or bad. It's part of the weather pattern. It's part of the system. If it's clear blue sky, it's neither good or bad. It's what is. So they have learned to relate to their body on that level because we have implanted in their mind the understanding that they can trust the body and that healing comes from within and that a symptom is not to be judged. It's just what is because we didn't judge it in front of them. We didn't say, oh, you know, you have a bad cough, or oh, you look terrible today, or you have a terrible fever. There was no need to say that. If you have a cough, you don't have to say it. It's obvious. You just watch it and witness it as a silent witness. And it is amazing how much that changed the relationship of the child to his body and to his symptom. So what took place is I witnessed those things at Sherman, and then after I graduated, I went to Hilton Head Island and tried to crack the state of South Carolina open. South Carolina was not open to Sherman students. They didn't want us to sit for the board. It was a political situation. So I went with a friend of mine to Hilton Head, South Carolina, with the intent of cracking the state open. And our intention was to implant ourselves into the community, to render tremendous service to the community, and then practice without a license and get busted for practicing without a license. And with the support of the community, try to create a court situation that will crack the state open. To shorten what went on there, what we did is we organized a mastermind. We mastermind actually a huge cleanup ecological campaign that was sponsored by Chiropractic. We felt that that would be a service to the community and that would gain the respect of the community. And in one day, after organizing everything over a period of months and completely the two of us masterminding the event, we had involved all of the business on the island, the fire department, the police department, the garbage department and all this. And in one day, at 8 o'clock it started, and by 4 o'clock, every highway, byways, backyard, beaches had been combed completely by the population of the island, and tons of garbage had been picked up. And it was an immense success to the degree that restaurant owner donated food to a huge nightclub to have an instantaneous celebration that evening for the success of the event in cleaning up the island. The next few days, we wrote the success, and then on one morning we opened the newspaper and found out that officials of the island had been indicted because they had embezzled money that the state had given them to do that very thing. You follow me? Mm. So from a very high, suddenly having caused trouble among the boys on the island, we went down into the doghouse. And what consequently to this, I went, due to many other factors, I went into a very heavy nervous breakdown. And all of this related to trust, because I want to share with you what went on. I started going downhill and become very depressed and then enter a full nervous breakdown. And by the time I hit bottom in the nervous breakdown, I was in a catatonic state. The catatonic state means that you are sitting completely motionless, incapable of taking care of yourself. As a matter of fact, the position that I was in most of the day was a squatting position like this in a corner. You are nonverbal, you cannot take care of yourself. You cannot go to the bathroom alone, you cannot feed yourself, you cannot wash yourself. You are completely out. You are acrophobic, which means if you stepped out of the environment in which you are, you can't find where you are, you're lost immediately. So this is why you confine yourself to a corner. Basically what takes place, under stress, the system breaks down and you recede to the lower part of the brain, into the primitive brain, and almost re-enter the womb, and you create for yourself an artificial womb in that catatonic state. So a friend of mine took care of me and virtually nurtured me to the degree that I was able to fly back to France. I was in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. I had gone to Hilton Head to Atlanta, Georgia, and I flew back to France because when you're in that state, the only really safe environment is your parents' home. So I flew back to France and I became non-verbal. I wasn't able to talk or speak. And the process lasted 9 months. And I want to share that with you for those of you that may have encountered that process or may down the line encounter it or are in the process of doing so now. That retrospectively, as hard as it was, as suicidal as I was, as down as I was, I never gave up. When people say you have to go to a psychiatric hospital, you have to be on drugs, I never gave up because of my belief in chiropractic and because of my anchoring in the chiropractic philosophy. I stayed with it. And what I realized retrospectively is that the process of the nervous breakdown was a means of shedding myself, of peeling layers of ego, peeling layers of who I thought I was, which I wasn't, which has caused me to break down. So, you know, years later, people around me say, oh, you got to go to Life Spring, you got to go to Est. And I went to those things, and I say, you know, people spend $1,500 to spend 3 days going to Est of Life Spring or the Forum or whatever it's called to experience what a breakdown, nervous breakdown, give you free of charge. You get it? Now, granted, it takes 9 months, but let me tell you, the Life Spring experience is a very short-lived experience. It propels people out suddenly on some kind of transformation, but then it winds itself up for a period of time. Whereas a nervous breakdown, which is a 9-month cycle, is a permanent change. Once you have peeled that layer is off. Now, I'm not saying that's the only layer there is, but at least that layer is off. So over the years in my office, when I've had people that had nervous breakdown, I really supported them and enticed them to live it through and to go through the cycle. And nearly irreversibly, people came out of it tremendously transformed and very appreciative that they have rode the wave. So you cannot go down and then not come back up on a crest. If you don't ride down and you stabilize yourself here, then your next high is only as high as the low that you had here. You follow me? You basically interfere with the process of life. So I went through this, and then when I came out of it, I remember vividly I was in Monaco in the south of France, and I was walking along the shore, and I had been in that state for 9 months. And I was obviously starting to come out, getting better, but I was still very depressed. And I was walking, and the dialogue in my head was this. This has been going on for 9 months. It doesn't mean it will still be going on tomorrow. And the instant that I finished that sentence, my eyesight shifted, and it opened up. And I had, from narrow tunnel vision that depressed people and nervous breakdown people have, I had an open, clear vision. And I saw my life 2 or 3 years ahead of time in a complete pictorial movie in my head. Exactly what would take place. And everything that I had visualized in my mind in that flash of a movie unfolded and actualized itself in my life. So I flew back to the United States and started practicing in Yardley, Pennsylvania. And I met Jane in the office, and some years later, we decided to, one summer evening in August, I decided to teach her how to ride motorcycle because my fantasy was that we would be both riding into the sunset, very romantic evening down the highway. So we were at Round Valley Park in New Jersey, and it was a hot summer in August, and we didn't put our leather gear back on because we were in the parking lot, and I said, I'm going to teach you in the parking lot how to ride your motorcycle. So she sat in front of the motorcycle, I sat in the back, I showed her where the clutch was, where the brake was, where the gear were, and the accelerator. And she put it on first gear, turned on the throttle, and the motorcycle went straight up like a rocket, like Ivan Knievel, straight across the parking lot, all the way across, and we hit the end of the parking lot. The bike took off in the air, we were propelled up, and then we landed. So Jane landed in the grass, and I landed on the back of the motorcycle. So, landing on the back of the motorcycle, I broke my nose, my zygomatic arch, and my jaw in one straight line. So my first reflex was to pick up the bike to see if it was okay, and today she still gives me grief about this, because obviously I should have said, how you doing, honey?
I didn't land in the grass, just for the record. I landed with my head in the curb, remember?
Mostly in the grass. I didn't get that.
Mostly in the air.
So
His bike wasn't hurt.
the bike was bent, but what we did is this. So I picked it up, and then I said, you okay? And she said, yeah, are you okay? And I didn't feel much pain at the time. And I said, yeah, I'm fine. And then I turned to keep looking at the bike, and she went, oh my God, look at your arm. And I look at my arm. Now this is an interesting phenomenon. I had no pain until I look at the arm. Now you may have heard of people, it happened very frequently among motorcycle racers or people on the street, that somehow they were in a crash or an object or something got their leg, and the leg went off, and they drive another 5-6 miles unaware that the leg is off, until they have to use the brake or something and they realize nothing is happening, and they look down and suddenly the pain surges. It's very much the same phenomena took place. And when I look at my arm was ripped open all the way like this up to the shoulder, one fingernail deep on the edge. Like the edge of the rip was like clear all the way through. And what was in it was rubber from the tire, sand, gravel, everything was in there. So I look at it and the pain started to surge. And then I said, reflex action, educated mind said, you gotta clean it up. So we're in a park, national park. So the only place to clean it up is that little bathroom down the walk. So I walk down there and I'm gonna rinse it up with water. And I go closer and closer to the faucet, and the closer I get to the faucet, the more the thought of putting water on it is like, oh, this is going to be horrible. So I enter the little thing, and then as I get close to the faucet, I say, if the body is saying, maybe listen to innate, listen to the body's message, don't do it. So I came back out, and when I came back out, and I'm looking at it, and the sun hits it at an angle that I didn't see before when I walked towards the shed. And what I saw is that the wound was completely covered with an oozing fluid, which was serous circulation, lymphatic circulation, and it was completely bathed in that oozing sea of serous circulation. And I had a flash that said, this is all BNT lymphocyte, macrophage, cell of the immune system. It's a lymphatic system sealing the wound. There is no way this thing is going to get infected. So we got on the bike, and the bike is slightly twisted, and we drove back home, about 20 miles back home. And by the time we get off the bike, we can hardly move because we had sprained our pelvis from the bike coming between our legs and standing us up. So we're walking up to the bedroom like this, and by now my jaw is starting to throb, right? So we go to bed, and I realize that as soon as I stop moving my arm, the pain is incredible. So obviously, all night long, I'm just like this, dozing off a little bit and then moving my arm. The pain wakes me up, I'm moving my arm. Now try to think of what would have happened if I had taken a painkiller and a sleeping pill. I wouldn't feel the pain, so I'm no longer moving the arm, right? And I'm falling straight asleep all night. In the morning, what would have happened? The arm would have been completely stiff, and this, as soon as I move it, would have ripped the little bit of healing that started, yes? But by keeping it mobile all night, it kept elasticity in the wound. so the wound remains elastic, and the serous fluid starts to coagulate and form the beginning of a crust, but it was elastic. So the next morning we get up and we're like stiff as a board, you know, like this, and I'm moving my arm. But it's Wednesday morning, time to go to work. So I cut my sleeve and I go to the office. And I was doing at the time motion palpation, where you sit behind people, you motion them, get them up, put them on the table, adjust them, push check them. So I thought, since my pelvis is sprained, the movement is going to be good for it, it's going to make it loose. On top of it, I still have to move my arm. So I'm doing this, so I practice all day Wednesday, and everybody has an idea. Everybody that come in is like, oh my God, what happened to you? You're going to get an infection, you got to get a tetanus shot, you got to get an antibiotic, you got to have a skin graft. Every single person, and those are well-educated, chiropractically educated people. They have gone to tons of talks, they understand chiropractic. They still have their stuff that they're going to tell me how my body should heal, and they all have different ideas. And I said, no, I don't think so. He's of Hamilton Hospital. And he woke up, his name was Murph Platt, and he said, I have no idea what you said, but seeing you up there with your arm cut up, knowing that your jaw is broken, but I explained to them the reason I couldn't talk properly is because the jaw was broken, I believe you got something, and he got under care. This thing healed in an amazing way. It formed a very thick scab, and the scab started to detach itself from the top. And I thought, you know, it's interesting. It could have detached itself from the bottom, but it's from above down, inside out. It did it from above down, inside out, from the top. So when it started to detach itself, it was about that thick. So people said, why don't you peel it off? You can imagine the idea of peeling it off. No thanks, right? So then, it came about that far off the arm. So people said, well, at least cut it. You know, with a scissors, the dead part, cut that part off. But I noticed one thing, that when I was coming close to somebody, this thing has a little spring action. And I could feel that there was something. So if I had cut it, I would have had a rough edge. And it was easy to get caught into something and rip it a little bit. So it did this, and then it did this. And then it started coiling. And then the inside of the coil turned to powder and disintegrated. So I walked around for a period of time with this coil that would keep doing all the way down. Today, there is nothing. There is nothing. I mean, there is not a mark on it. There is nothing. Completely healed. So the next thing that went on is from the time this happened, tremendous migraine headaches. Get adjusted, nothing changed. Migraine headaches. By the way, if you have migraine headaches that don't go away because you get adjusted, don't stop getting adjusted. See, it doesn't make any sense. Keep getting adjusted. Maybe they'll never go away. That doesn't mean anything. Should you be subluxated or should you be adjusted with a migraine? If you have migraine, you're better off adjusted. So you keep getting adjusted. I'm sitting in the sun, right, or in September or October, whatever, reading books. I feel a contraction of the muscle and a shift and a click. Migraine went away, the headache went away, never came back. The body, whatever it had to do, did its thing on my face. So that was the process of healing. So now, Jane, which I met, had a thyroidectomy before I met her. Are you guys sweating it out, okay? You okay? This is your entertainment, all right. She had a thyroidectomy, which means that she had to take thyroxine hormone. Before I met her, she was married, and she had lost babies, because when you're on thyroxine hormone, sometimes some of the side effect is to miscarry the baby about 2 or 3 months after pregnancy. So she had miscarriages. After she got under care, she stopped taking thyroxine hormone, and to this date, since 1978? 75. She was under care with somebody else before getting me under care in my office. Since 1975, she has not been on thyroxine hormone, even though she has no thyroid. Again, no one had an explanation for this until I read Quantum Healing from Deepak Chopra and read that it is known today that the brain produces every single chemical produced by every single gland in the body. So who knows that her brain now is manufacturing thyroxine hormone and supporting the body even though she doesn't have the gland. So we're married now and we want to have children, and she keeps having miscarriages. So we decide to adopt children. By the way, Jane had all of her miscarriages, some 5?
6.
6. 6 at home, no obstetrician, no DNC, nothing. The body did it, no infection, nothing. So we decided to adopt children. One of the requirements to adopt children in the United States is to have a health certificate. So this is my first encounter with the medical profession in all those years, and I have to have a medical exam to have an official health certificate. So I go to the Phillips Barber Clinic in Lambertville, New Jersey, and walk in and do my physical exam and all this, and eventually they come into the room and they ask you to void into a little cup, and it's a plastic cup. Now I void into the cup and I hand it to the nurse, and I had been urinating blood for about, it was April, so it was about 4 months. So when I handed her the cup, it's pink. So she takes it, she didn't say anything. I wait about 20 minutes in that little cubicle, and here comes the doctor. He walks in, and he goes, Mr. Burnier, have you noticed anything strange in your urine lately? Did you ever see the Woody Allen movie where there is a conversation and then Woody Allen is thinking in his head and there is a capture? So as he's saying this to me, I'm thinking, no, doc, no idea. No idea that it's pink, doc. I mean, the guy is asking me if I notice anything strange in my urine. He got handed a pink grapefruit juice cup of urine. So I say, yeah, I've been, urinating blood for 4 months. No kidding, the guy went, 4 months? He took a step back. And then he went into a rampage as to all of the things that it could be. It could be prostate cancer. It could be a tumor in the bladder. It could be a tumor in the kidney. It could be a tumor in the spine that has metastasized to the bladder. It could be prostate. I mean, you name it, he had a whole arsenal of things that it could be. None of which I didn't know. Understand? None of which I didn't study and I didn't know in medical school and for the board in chiropractic school. But none of which I had given any effort, any empowerment. I was at peace with urinating blood for the last 4 months. I was not disturbed by it. So he said, well, I cannot give you a health certificate, a clean bill of health, unless you have an IVP, which is a test. So we wanted to have children, so we went to have the IVP. The IVP consists of injecting a dye into your vein. It goes through your body, enters your kidneys, and once it enters your kidneys, they take x-rays, A2P and lateral. So I go to Henderson Hospital, and it was in the morning with Jane, and we go for the IVP. I lay on the table, they take the A2P x-ray, and the lateral. Wait about half an hour, they come back with pillows. And they say, we got to take one more shot. And they start to prop me in all kind of position with the pillow at an angle. Now, what do you think went through my mind? They find something, right? A2P and lateral makes sense. But when suddenly they come back with pillows and prop you in all kind of position to have a specific angle, you think they saw something on the A2P and the lateral. Now they want to have a clean shot at it. So they take the shot. And while this is happening, I'm telling the guy how terrible x-rays are on the human body. And all the stuff that I know from John Goffman's study about x-ray and how he could save 1 million lives by not taking so many x-rays on people. And I'm on a rampage on this guy, right? So when I asked him to see the x-ray, he's dishing it back at me. He said, no, you're not seeing the x-ray, pal. You have to see your x-ray from the referring doctor. And we get into a head-to-head thing, and there was no dealing with this guy, and we left. So now we are driving, and I'm convinced, obviously, that there is something. I've been urinating blood for 4 months. They find something in the IVP. And now, in my mind with Jane, we are formulating how we're going to change our life to deal with cancer. Because if I have cancer, I don't go to the hospital, I go to the Caribbean. Okay? If I have cancer, I don't put drug, needle, surgery, chemotherapy, anesthetize my body, cut it, mutilate it. I go where there is life, water, fresh food, relaxation, great love making with my family, have fun, no stress. I sell the practice. So now we are formulating all this. And I can tell you, for those of you that can relate to this, that have had this experience, that the minute that you have the susceptibility that you may have something very serious with you that could be life-threatening, there is a shift that takes place. And that morning, after the IDP, we went to have breakfast. And I remember sitting in that restaurant at breakfast, and people were laughing around. And I thought to myself, what is there to laugh about? And I felt myself separated from life already. We waited about 3 weeks, and one day the phone rang, and this guy's on the phone, and he said, the results of the tests are negative. Now, negative means good news. You get it, right? But you know that when you're in that state, waiting for a test result, as much as I knew that negative meant good news, when he said the results are negative, my emotion went, oh no. And then my mind said, negative? Oh, that means good. So my emotion went down, thought for a second, right back up. And at the time that I was right back up, this is what he said to me. He said, but this test is not conclusive. We have to do a cystoscopy, which to take a fiber optic through the penis into the bladder. At which point I said to him, listen, before I met you, I was okay. I was completely okay with what was going on. Since I met you, and you gave me that talk, and you shifted my space, I feel a presence in my abdomen. I've been depressed, I've been down. Now, you make a decision whether or not I have the right to adopt children, and you sleep on it, and I hang up. Within about 48 hours, he sent a health certificate. I never had a cystoscopy. The bleeding stopped by June. 3 months later, I never had another bout with it. What I want to bring into focus there is, as grounded as I was chiropractically, as strong as my chiropractic philosophy was, that guy, by that 1, 2 or 3 minute fear interaction and fear injection into my consciousness, shifted my space, depressed my body, depressed my immune system, and I started feeling and conceptualizing in my mind's eye a tumor in my bladder. What do you think the impact of that interaction is with an unprepared person who has no philosophy, who has no guidance mechanism, who is basically going through life, whatever way the wind is blowing, that's the way they're going. At least with the chiropractic philosophy, we have a direction, we have a focus, we have a mind which is single-minded in understanding universal intelligence, in trusting innate, in trusting life force. So we recovered from this, and we adopted kids. Now the kids are from Korea. It won't be too long if you guys are falling asleep. You guys are okay?
No. Okay, go ahead. Go.
We adopted the kids from Korea, and they were 1 and 2.5. They're brother and sister. They're natural brother and sister. Before they left Korea, they had been shot with every possible vaccination because the immigration department requests that, and you cannot fight the immigration department for adoption. So you have to subject yourself to this. So what went on is this, and try to get the synchronicity of life when you open yourself up to life. The decision we made when we decided to adopt the children is this. On the form, it said all kind of question as to what type of children you want. And the answer was any children, any country, any condition. Essentially, if we had had our biological children, you don't go, I want a 5'6" Caucasian, and so and so on. You make love and whatever comes out, right? Agreed? Mm-hmm. That's what happened. So we felt that if we were going to adopt children, we were going to do the exact same thing. We were going to completely open up ourselves to the universe and say whatever comes our way is going to be our gift. So they were abandoned on my birthday. They arrived on the little boy's birthday, which is also my mother-in-law's birthday. The little girl is my sister-in-law's birthday. I mean, you may think, well, it's just numbers. But the fact that those numbers all coincide is what I call synchronicity in life. Now check this other synchronicity. We are vacationing in France for 3 weeks on a motorcycle, and we are told the adoption agency, don't send the kids prior to September 9. We're in France, September 8th. It's the eve of departure, back to the States. The phone rang at midnight. It's the adoption agency saying, you better get on the plane, your children are in the air. And we said, what happened? We told you not to send the kids prior to September 9th. They say, yes, but Korea is around the world. It's already September 9th. Now get this. They are flying from Seoul. We are flying from Paris. Kennedy Airport, parents. Half an hour, same gate. Children. This is how it happened. We're at Kennedy Airport. We have a tiny little piece of luggage from being on a motorcycle for 3 weeks. I go to the parking lot to dump this, so to have open arms for the kids, into the car of my in-laws that are waiting for us at the gate, right? So we walk to the parking lot of JFK. Anybody have been to JFK? You know how big it is, right? I dump the bag in the trunk of the car. I close it. We start to turn around to walk back to the terminal. My brother-in-law and his wife pulled in just 2 spaces next to us. Same time, same space. So now the 4 of us walk up to the thing. We have a little sandwich, a drink, and Jane goes to the bathroom with her sister. While in the bathroom, this radiant being of light, this Korean woman, is holding a little girl and said to Jane, Mrs. Burnier, your daughter has to go shishi. Which means in Korean, going to the bathroom. That's how in tune those people were with already who the parents were, that she recognized Jane in the bathroom while she was taking the little girl to go to the bathroom. She thought, well, since the mother is here, she might as well take over, right? So now her sister comes out of the bathroom and waves at me and says, they're here, they're here. So I go into the room, and another woman, I mean, those people are incredible, the people that do this work. They're just pure love, you know, they just radiate love and light. They have this little boy, he's 1 year old, he arrived on his birthday, and he goes, boo-boo, upa, which means daddy. And he took his pacifier that he had one on the string and stuck it right in my mouth. And that's how I was introduced to the little boy. I wanted to bring this into focus because I felt that we had opened up ourselves to trusting life, and all those events fell completely into line, one after the other. And I don't want to make you feel like, well, we are special people and we trust life all the time. I don't want to convey that. I want to convey that I have the same difficulty, and we have the same difficulties that you all have. We all have the same struggle with staying on the beam of light. But when we're on the beam of light, it is amazing that when we walk in trust, everything seems to unfold perfectly. The mechanism of life seems to just present itself perfectly to us. And this is something that we have to really accept and recognize when we are on it, and when we are off of it, to realize how much of a struggle it is and how everything has to be fought and it doesn't flow through. So the kids came, and they had been separated from the mothers, separated from the foster mothers, flown into a different country, different culture, different food, and shot the hell with vaccination before leaving Korea. So you can imagine how traumatized their body was. Their body were completely violated chemically, emotionally, and certainly physically from the trauma of it all. So fairly quickly, they start to have body response to discharge this trauma and to discharge the toxicity. The little boy, whenever he would move for the weekend to go see my brother-in-law, he would have a scar on his eyelid. And then within 5-6 days, it would disappear. We would make another move, and he would have another scar on the upper eyelid. It was constant. The report in the paper of the agency said that he's fussy when you change him. So he's always fussy at night. And then one day, he's screaming in the evening uncontrollably. He is completely just uncontrollably screaming. And, you try everything. Diapers, food, bottle, holding him. Nothing will stop him. So compelled to do something, he's sitting in his little chair at the counter, compelled to do something. I walk up to him, and I just want to hold his head. And when I do this, he had long Korean hair. When I do this, I brush his hair aside. and the ear became exposed. And what happened is that the ear had coiled out of itself like a snail and was hanging outwards. All the duct, all the way to the eardrum, all that has coiled out. And I took a step back in complete fright, and I looked at the ear, and I went, oh my God, you know, we got to take him to the hospital. Fear, hospital. And I got hold of myself, and I said, that was a fear response. And I shifted, and I recentered myself, and as soon as I moved into trust, my eyesight shifted in the sense that rather than looking at the ear now, I saw the whole face. And what I saw is every time that he took his breath to cry, his entire face was contracting, not like typically like a child, like this, but like this to one side. And that the masseter and temporalis muscle were contracting in unison towards the ear. And I realized that all of the forces at work during the crying action was pushing in that direction. And I thought, it's pushing to expel the stuff out. And we waited maybe, I don't know, an hour or so. He kept crying. There was projectile pus that came out, a cheesy smell that to make you vomit. And the only thing I did is brush his face like this. And every time I did this, more pus came out. Within 48, 72 hours, the ear was completely normal, no hearing loss. Let me ask you this. What would have happened? There was no warning of this. What would have happened if that child was taken to the hospital the way that I saw it? They would have lanced it, they would have put antibiotic into his body, painkiller, and at the time, he was only with us for 4 or 5 months, they would have taken those children away from us because they would have treated this as a child abuse. And in the early state of adoption, your children belong to the state of Pennsylvania, not to the parents. It's a year later that you endorse the adoption. So I want you to keep in mind that Dr. Mendelsohn in his book, Confession of a Medical Heretic and How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor, said time and time over that ear infections are non-threatening to the hearing mechanism. There is no reported cases of children having ear infection and losing their hearing. It just doesn't happen. Recently in the press, about a month ago, there was all kinds of articles about how antibiotics were very detrimental to children with ear infection and how tubes should not be inserted in the ear. I want to strongly ask you to remember that story when you deal with children in your office that have ear infection, to be firm with the parents, to stand your ground, to ask them to get adjusted, to ask them to stick with it, and to not give into the fear mode of I have to give him antibiotic, I have to give him painkiller, we have to put the tube in, which the body kick out, right? And then they put new tube, that the body kick out, then they put T tube that the body can't kick out. So stick with it, the body can do it. Now the little girl, what happened to the little girl is this, that she had the croup many times and had raging fever where her body turned to like beads of water all over her body. And that was her way of discharging the toxin and the trauma and everything. And then she would recover. And a few years later, something very strange happened. She became quite ill. And in the morning, she would come down and she would be just in a daze, like her eye completely glassy, staring in space like this. And she was feeble. She would come down, lay on the couch, spend a day on the couch, go to bed. And this went on for 4 or 5 days, and she would be coughing. Tanya had been a nudge beyond belief from very early on. The rationale for it was this. She was very conscious at 2.5 that she had been rejected by the parents and rejected by the foster mother. So she had abandon issue. So in order to test her love, she was completely nudging and poking and nudging and nudging to the point where you feel like, get away, leave us alone. Because she felt that if she could nudge us to the point that we wouldn't reject her, more likely we loved her. You follow me? So she went through this coughing, and I'm at the office on a Wednesday, and Jane called late in the evening and said, you better close early and go home. She's very, very ill. She's coughing very intensely. And it's like, ba-boom, 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 cough, non-stop like this. And I said to Jane, listen, I'm at the office. I know you spent the day with Tanya, and you're emotionally involved with it. But from a detachment, from a distance, she's having a healing crisis. So I go home, finish the office, go home, walk into the house, and I said to Jane, where's Tanya? Oh, she said she's in bed, she's asleep. Honest to God. The next morning, she comes downstairs like nothing ever happened. With one change. The new Jane was kicked out. You understand what went on? The chest is a treasure chest of emotion. Under emotional trauma, children cave it in and lock it in and close it. The catharsis of the physical process of coughing opened up the chest and released it. And when she completely expectorated her pain, expectorated her energy, then she was done with the new Jane. What I want to convey is that the process of physical symptoms is a path to emotional healing in many forms, in many ways. And in her case, this is what took place. It was a path to emotional healing. The point behind all this I want to share, I mean, there is a lot more that I could share because we have gone, we have gone through a lot. But the point I want to share is that I think we are very quick, even in chiropractic and even among chiropractic family and among chiropractor with the people, to give in. No one is willing to walk the cycle. Everything in the body has a cycle. A cough has a cycle, a cold has a cycle, a growth has a cycle, everything has a cycle. But nobody is willing to do it. And most people go up, it's getting worse, it's getting worse, it's getting worse. But it's getting worse, yes, it's getting worse. And at the peak, it's at the worst. But then it gets better. In order to get better, it has to get worse. You understand that there is a cycle to it? And the willingness to stick with it is very important. And the reality is that most medical people have never seen a person going through the cycle. What they have seen is a person coming in frightened and then an interference into it. Therefore, they have never seen the completion of the cycle. But when you allow the healing process, when you allow the burn, when you allow the growth, when you allow the cough, when you allow the ear to go through the cycle, then you uncover indeed that there is something frightening that you witness, but that indeed there is resolution and that indeed there is healing. That much better as the body is clear. In a nervous breakdown, there is a cycle too. So what I wanted to share with you, and through this story of all chiropractic evolution, thank you very much. What I wanted to share with you is that when you walk in trust, it is amazing how life unfolds. It is amazing how the insight that you get. It is amazing how clairvoyant you become into the purpose of things that you witness and you watch. That there is a dialogue out there that can only be tapped into when you are in trust with life. And if there is one thing in chiropractic, there is a book called Chiropractic, Life Without Fear. And I say that the guy was still subluxated when he wrote that title. That chiropractic is life with trust. There is a very, very big difference to live life without fear versus to live life with trust. You follow me? That's an enormous difference. I mean, that's like without fear, you are working at 49%. With trust, you're working at 100%. It's a whole different ballgame to work with life in trust. So that's all I have to share. If you guys want to share something or get up, my voice is spent. So I really appreciate talking with you. I appreciate your attentiveness.